We are now visiting the Ismailovsky Island, on which there is a Tsar's courtyard. Here happened to be, years ago, the workmen's settlement, in which there was a great problem how to accommodate all the people that went here. So the answer was to create several extensions as to such temple in which people used to live. Every apartment starts with the hall, with the entrance hall. And in communal apartments, they used to be very small, but also it always existed. In each hall, there stood such a stand on which they always took off their clothes and put them. But not only clothes. Such kinds of string bags, which in Russian were called avoskas. You would see such kinds of bags in each Soviet movie as the milk bottles, which they usually used for the milk. They had to even receive them and after that return to the place where they got it. And the important fact about that they needed to clean it properly. All those people who would receive it would complain. In all the communal apartments, there used to be such kinds of kitchens. There were no rooms for the kitchens, but there were tables. Each housewife or an owner could have her own table and also her own cooker and all the pots and pans. And all of them were arranged in her own manner, so it could characterize her somehow. And the number of tables depended on the number of owners of the whole communal apartment. Right near this kinds of places, there were bathrooms. Well, the so-called bathrooms. They had no particular rooms for bathing, but they had the place. And also, the dining room was right here. They could sit right near the kitchen and the bathroom and discuss the social, economical and political problems. Who knows, maybe some of the greatest mistakes were made here or some of the greatest questions were solved right beside this kind of table. The living room was the only one room which was for one family, because the kitchen and the so-called bathroom were for several families at once. They always had a bed in their bedrooms, and if they didn't have enough beds, because they could be more than 2 or 3 or 5 people in one family, they could use such kinds of folding beds, which are very useful because they are compact. You could fold and unfold it and keep it in the right place, and they will not take a lot of space. And also, a very significant fact concerning the life of the Russians in the Soviet Union, they used to have such kind of a carpet. One of the interesting facts is that they used such kind of carpets not just as parts of the interior, but also they could make it profitable to do that. They hang such kind of hooks on them and put their watch in it. That was rather popular in Soviet Union. Without modern technologies, which we have now, people used to devote themselves to studies, to reading books, to their work, to lots of other things. They could play chess beside such kinds of tables. They could sit around them and discuss lots of matters. They could invent a nuclear bomb. They could invent anything, such kind of tables. In spite of the inconvenient conditions in which Russians lived those days in the Soviet Union, they still created, dreamed, worked, studied, and made lots of other activities. They played sports, they developed themselves in culture, in the literature, and in the politics. They really showed themselves as the people who could struggle for their lives, and such way of life also influenced their way of mind and their train of their thoughts.
О, нет любви.